Hello, everyone who's been following this little mini series of my back wheel that doesn't like to spin freely. This is part 3, another update. Between yesterday and today, I did some disassembling and getting things out of here and seeing how it all works. Well, yesterday I didn't take the bearings out of the wheel. I couldn't figure out how, but today I managed to get them out pretty easily once I figured out what I was doing. And here's what that looks like. For everybody who was wondering if I have nylon lock nuts, no. Here's a picture of that. It's this little thing and then spacer, which kind of goes through this hole here. And then it goes through the wheels, the bearings, and then spacer on the inside, and then whatever that little nut thing here is called. So that's my little setup here. And this is what it looks like once you take the bearings out, or one bearing. There's a bearing in the spacer, as you see at the top here. You probably can't read it, but it does say Razor Pro on the bearings. And then there's the spacer. Here's the inside of the wheel when the bearing is out. So I've gotten my wheel to spin more freely. Here's what it looks like. So it does spin decently freely. There's a little bit of binding still. And I do have to loosen the nut just a little bit, not as much as before. And tightening it also, having it all the way tight also doesn't bind as much as it used to. So overall, definite improvement, but not perfect. So what did I do to achieve this? I'm not exactly sure. I took everything apart. I took the bearings out and I put them back in as flatly as I could. I tried to make the inner part of the bearing flat with the rest of the bearings so it's not sticking out, which I was unable to do with one of the bearings. For some reason, on one of the bearings, that inner circle right here sticks out just a little bit from the blue part. And if you run your finger over it, you can feel the little raise there. On the other bearing, there isn't that. It's flat. And I'm guessing that's the issue, or some of the issue. Here's a picture with it reassembled. And I think this might be related to some of the issue here. So if you look in between the bearing inside, there's a spacer there. The problem, or the result of something, is that this spacer doesn't stay in place. It wiggles freely in there. I have tried and tried to hammer in the two bearings so that they're tight against that, but they won't. So something is slightly off, I think. From what I understand, that middle one should be able to be moved manually, but otherwise it should stay in place. So that makes me think that something on my two bearings, they're either not going in enough or something's sticking out. Maybe the inner part is sticking out too much, or I don't really know. And I welcome any thoughts that you guys have. Here's what it looked like when I first tried putting the bearings in. You may or may not notice something. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. A little bit wobbly. Yeah, I didn't get him all the way in. And I fixed that just by hammering around the edges. So anyway, I have the wheel spinning decently enough, I think. What do you guys think looking at this? Is that acceptable? I think it's a lot better than it was. And I don't have to leave it super loose. And the tire also has no play in it, which is nice. I have yet to ride it like this. I'm a little afraid because I have taken a lot of stuff apart, including the wheels, the bearings, and a part that I've never touched before on this scooter. But I'll get over it once I see that everything's fine. So that's to say, I took this thing and adjusted that, which is It's just like on my 150cc scooter and on bicycles, you can tighten or loosen that to make it, well, tighter or looser. I adjusted this also because I noticed my handlebars were doing a thing where they had wobble, like back and forth play in them. Didn't like that. It made the scooter feel cheap, and I'm sure that was making it feel more vibraty and more like one of those harder, tired kick scooters. So I spent probably an hour and a half figuring out how to make that work and get it all tightened down. And what took me so long is this little clamp up here, that little top piece. I didn't realize that was the part that keeps your handlebars from spinning independent of the wheel, so you could realign your wheels and handlebars. So here I was adjusting these two bottom ones for probably an hour, trying to figure out why in the world I would have it so tight and yet the handlebars were still loose. I thought maybe I did something wrong. Then once I finally got it in the right position, I added this top piece right here, tightened it up, and then realized, oh, that's the thing that holds the handlebars in place. See, I was thinking maybe I needed a wrench for the bottom, a wrench for the top, one for each one. And I thought my scooter was going to be unusable for a while until I got the right tools. But turns out, no, it was just this top clamp I needed. And I have a little bit of experience of this from my 150cc scooter, the gas-powered one that I used to have. It had the same thing, the two nuts and this little, or it was one nut and it was a little turny thing, I think. But from what I remember, the turny thing also made the handlebars tighter, so that's what confused me so much. Anyway, it's all working now. So I will give an update maybe when I go for a ride and see how this new looseness in the wheel performs, as well as the tightness in the handlebars feels. The whole scooter now feels solid. It feels nice. The main parts, the handlebars, the wheels, everything is solid. There's no rocking back and forth. There's no play. There's no looseness, anything. And I think that's kind of the key with something like this if you want that smooth ride that the A5 Air is meant to give. So I can't wait to try it. And I don't think I can do anything further about this wheel. It seems like the one bearing just, I don't know. I don't think there's anything I could do. Maybe a new set of bearings. But at this point, I'm not sure if I care. And I also happen to see this on my wheel. That is the sign or the sight of my wheel starting to peel. And no, I'm not doing burnouts. No, I don't know why it's there. That was a joke, by the way. Of course you can't do a burnout, can you? I don't think you could on a kick scooter. And it wasn't from hitting the brakes too hard or anything either. It was just apparently something I must have hit, maybe run over, and it tore the wheel. And I'm really not happy to see that. Because does that mean now that it's going to start ripping more and more and more? Am I going to have to buy a new wheel? I've only gone maybe 5 miles on this, and it's pretty much brand new. Seeing this made me kind of make the decision not to pour any money into this scooter, because what if I don't like these air tires anyway because of things like this happening? I may eventually decide to try the A5 Lux or A6 or something like that, but we'll see. The picture really makes it look awful, doesn't it? All this crack in the middle. You don't see that in person. The camera just gets nice and close. Yeah, that looks pretty awful, doesn't it? But it doesn't look that bad in person. But this little spot right here, yes, that does look like that in person, just not as big, of course. I don't want to come to conclusions, but I am very bummed about this. And from what I understand, a new tire would cost, what, 20, 30? Now, since my first impression video, I have hit some cracks that would send me over the handlebars. So I can't say it's impossible to go over the handlebars, of course. But I have found myself looking at the sidewalk more than I thought I would, and just generally making sure that I'm not going to hit something that, I've been finding that it tends to get stuck up on things a little easier than I originally thought. I love the low deck. It makes it nice and easy to touch the ground, but I must say I am really bottoming out very, very easily. And sometimes I don't want to do wheelies over things. Sometimes I just want to roll over things. Any little tiny hill in the sidewalk, getting a little annoying, sliding through little hills. Well, anyway, I imagine the A5 Lux wouldn't be too much better in that department because it also has the low deck. I don't know. Maybe the rubber wheels on this one makes it even lower because of the tire squishing down. I plan to stick with this scooter. And I'm not just going to go out and buy an A5 Lux just because I saw this little thing here. As much as it came to my mind right away. I think I've gotten this scooter tuned about as good as I can get it without buying fancy bearings or anything like that. I think I'll just leave it how it is now, unless something goes wrong with it, maybe. I think I'm pretty satisfied with how I have it tuned. I need to give this one a good fair chance and kind of stop being so picky, maybe. Although the back tire not spinning freely, I don't think is so picky. That's called I don't want to be exhausted for no reason when I don't have to be.